You guys like this? Sick. You're pretty much. The sick solo tea. Solo cup tea? There we go, there we go. Okay, so today I wanted to talk some about art, fantasy, projection, illusions, inspiration, and imagination. So, we don't always have to talk about very serious or things that people may find bizarre. We can talk about normal-ish things. So, art is very interesting to me. I've dabbled in many forms of art, and ultimately, I consider the way you live your life an art, in a sense. So, anyway, but yeah, I've painted, I've drawn, I've dabbled in photography for at least a decade. Not very seriously, but just in passing almost. And I don't know, it's just always been a really important part of my life to just take part in like looking at things from different perspectives and in new ways. And recently I had this realization that sometimes art or some of the styles of art that people do, like Marina Abramovich, I think is her name, Marina Abramovich. Yes, there we go. She does a form of art that I find very interesting, in which you allow the viewer of the art to project whatever it is they need the piece to be onto your project. And so your piece becomes very transformative and meaningful to many people because you're allowing the piece to be whatever they need the piece to be, right? So, in some ways, art is fantasy or escapism, and a rejection of the mundane and of the average, almost a rejection of reality in a sense, because some art cuts through reality. Not all art, but some art is an adornment of reality. But I guess what I want to talk about specifically today is Marina Abramovich's project. I believe it was in the MoMA, and she just looked into people's eyes for a minute at a time. Like an individual would come and sit in front of her, and she would gaze into their eyes, much as I'm doing right now. And people would cry, people would laugh, people would feel all sorts of things, right? And the reason that this works is because they're projecting their feelings onto her eyes. So she's becoming a blank canvas for the person to get what they need from her. And they've built up this experience. And so they need it to be meaningful because they've waited for this moment. And so when they have this moment, there's all this expectation and projection that they're doing onto her. And then she just has to kind of feel that out and go with it, right? Or even doing nothing in a sense. So sometimes art to me is very interesting because in its vagueness, it becomes more useful to us, almost, because then we're allowed to fill in the blanks of what we want it to mean or how the experience relates directly to our experience. So, maybe you hear a love song and it's like very, it has to be concrete enough to form a picture, but abstract enough to allow you the opportunity to color in the picture with the colors that you want the picture to be. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does. So, but also in her project, she is allowing you to paint the entire picture because all she's doing is being there for you as a canvas, allowing you to see whatever it is you want or need to see in that moment. And I think that's very, very clever of her to really look deeper into what art is, in a sense, and to say art is me giving you something and allowing you to change it into what you want it to be. So, and I'm not saying this is always the case, because there are cases where art is very specific. It is a representation of a feeling of the collective that is relatable. So, again, like a love song, representation of emotions that people often feel when they're in love, or when that love ends, or when they're about to be in love, right? And all those hopes that they have for the love. So, um, love songs are very common, and I like love songs, so that's why I'm bringing up love. But also like this idea of fantasy, because I feel that fantasy, it's like people are selling this illusion that many people want to buy into, and so they do, right? Because they want to, because they want to believe in love, or whatever it is, or they want to believe that they're connecting to the eyes of another human being on a deeper level than they normally do when they look into the eyes of a human being. And because they've waited for this experience, they need this experience to be fulfilling, so that it's worth it to them, so that they feel like they have not wasted their time, right? So, very interesting. But fantasy, or artistry in general, is a rejection of convention, of normalcy, of the mundane, of being average. Art is like, artists are strange, yes? And I know I try not to like stereotype people, but I know a lot of artists, and um I consider myself an artist to some degree. Like, I enjoy many artistic things. I enjoy creative things. I enjoy creating many, many different things. So, um, artists are strange. And I think that's just normal, because artists have to look at things differently to be able to create something from nothing. Because a lot of art is taking nothing, or taking pain, or taking pleasure, or taking something that you see in real life and transforming it into something else. So that process of creation from nothingness, inspiration. So like your spirit inspires you to bring something forth from nothing. And so that process you have to look at things differently. You have to see things from many angles. Um, and to see things from many angles, you have to be a strange character at times. Because once you start looking at things from many different angles, you realize that being in a fixed perspective is not always the most productive. And so you learn this skill, I would call it a skill, of perspective hopping, perhaps. So you're in this perspective, and then you're in that perspective. And you can look at this like from the angle of photography, no pun intended, from this angle, from this angle, from this angle, from the opposite angle, right? But you can also look at it from like a symbolic perspective of like even at looking at a painting from all perspectives of the people in the painting and how those correlate. Or you can play with perspective in the sense that you can see that one person will see this as one thing, whereas another person will see this as something completely different. And that's even playing with perspective to a degree. So I guess my point is artists are strange. And I think the reason that people enjoy art, even if they're not artists, I think one of the reasons people enjoy art or find artists amusing is because it is fundamentally a rejection of reality as being good enough, in a sense. I take your reality and I raise you 2 chips. You know, I don't want this reality. I take this reality and I cut it up and I get some glue and I paste it all together again, and this is reality now, right? And that's what art is. It's transforming things. And not just reality, but it's transforming emotion, sadness. A lot of great art comes from pain or sadness, or I mean, it can come from a lot of places. It can come from joy just as well, but I think a lot of art comes from like a dark place or even a beautiful place, and like taking that beauty and like trying to capture it, at least attempting to capture it, whether that beauty is within you or whether you were inspired by the beauty that already is in reality. Because that's another thing, is like there is already so much beauty in reality, and like often we try to recreate that through art because we want to capture it, we want to hold it, we want to have it, and we want to give it to somebody sometimes, you know, and say, look at this, I made this for you. Isn't it cute? Isn't it cute how I tried to make this that, and then I give it to you because I think that's so beautiful and I want you to have it and see it as being as beautiful as I see it. So art can be many things, but I think my goal here, because I am getting a little bit off track, is that artists in a way sell this fantasy of otherness and rejection of the norm, and the normal things aren't always bad, but I think there is something beautiful about people who choose to not be normal, because it is a difficult choice to make, and it is a choice that people make, and it's not a choice in the sense that you're trying to be anything other than you are, but I think some people choose to view what they know will be accepted, and then some people choose to be what they know will not be accepted, but what they know that they ultimately are or have to be. And I'm not saying that everybody feels that urge, because I think many people are very normal and that's just their nature. And I don't think there's anything like wrong or bad about that. But just as I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing to be strange. Because sometimes reality, not necessarily reality, but the reality that we all agree upon, the social construct or the social contract that is reality, sometimes it's good to challenge that. And that's how we make progress. And so I think there is something very admirable about that. And I think that fierceness or that desire that artists embody is admired by others, because on some level they know that it's admirable to challenge convention. And I think that's fun. I think that's fun. And art is interesting because it can mean many different things to many different people. And art is also like, it's taking like very normal things that everyone understands and everyone experiences it, and finding the right way to capture this experience. But again, this involves projection. Once again, like, you take this experience and you say, this is my experience. And still, you know that the viewer will project their experience onto your experience. So there's a layering of what you know it to be and what you know they'll take it as, or what you're alluding to, and also the layer that they're adding. So art is very interactive in many ways, because art is not only of the artist, art is a projection of the viewer. And so, in a sense, that's frustrating, because you want people to see what you are making, right? But also, isn't it beautiful to be able to play with other people's projections? Isn't that interesting too? And can't you play a whole bunch of games with that as well? Um, so yeah, art can be capturing shared experiences. Um, it can be, it's also very symbolic. So like, we use many symbols. So like words are symbols, sounds can even be symbolic. Um, Images are obviously symbolic. And so I think artistry is also about working with like the unseen in a sense, because you're interpreting a language that is not like necessarily quantifiable, or it's not like, I don't know if that's the right word. It's not like written down somewhere like the alphabet. It's not like A, B, C. It's like a symbol like a woman. A woman is a symbol, right? The image of a woman represents a woman, and what a woman represents to many different people, I don't know. So, and then you can get involved in like specifics. So like an angry woman, a happy woman, a sad woman, you know, you can get involved in like gender and race, and you can make it even political if you like. You can make it so I don't know. Anyway, there's this sort of playing not only with your own ideas and your own perceptions, but also with the symbols and how these archetypes that we have. That's the right word, really. It's not really a symbol, it's like an archetype. So like the mother archetype, or the father archetype, or You can even think about like twins and like being spooky. Like that's kind of a thing that's like used in our culture, is like spooky twins. So there's many like archetypes that we play with, and we understand the projections that will be projected onto them, and like their cultural meanings, and how those relate to all the other symbols. So I don't know if I'm really getting anywhere with this. This is like definitely rambly for sure, but I didn't really plan this out. I just thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about art and projection, and also fantasy, because it's escapism in a sense. Like all art is made as a way to escape where you are in this moment and to go into a different experience. So you're going into the painting, you're going into the song, you're going into the photograph, into the movie. You are not necessarily separate from these things. Like you become these things and you see yourself in these things. And that's why movies have a main character, because you're putting yourself in the shoes of that individual. And so like even on that level, projection and escapism, because instead of identifying with yourself, you're identifying with whatever it is that's put in front of you, whatever form of art it may be. And so, in a way, artists are selling you an escape, a momentary escape from what you are right now. And that's also kind of what YouTube is. And I was thinking about that. It's like, I watch so many boring things on YouTube, and I find boring things so entertaining. Like things that most people find mundane are very normal, like Emma Chamberlain, Amelia Fart, Trisha Paytas. These are very normal life struggles, you know. I mean, Amelia Fart's a strange character for sure, but like her struggle is very real. And I think the reason I enjoy this is because what I see in them is myself. I see aspects of myself in these people. But also beyond that, the point I'm getting to is that it's an escape from what I'm doing right now, from who I am right now. I'm escaping from my life into their life. And even though their life may be just as chaotic or boring, because it's not chaotic, or mundane, or whatever it is, their life may be very similar to my life. But I'm escaping into their life because I'm choosing to see life from their perspective at that point instead of from mine. And so it's almost as if infinity is bored. So my consciousness is bored because infinity is a long, long time. And so my consciousness decides to peer into the consciousness of the other and see how bored the other is and experience boredom from their perspective, or experience pain or joy or pleasure or surprise or hate or whatever it is that they choose to show me, right? And I think one of the most beautiful, I can't stress this enough to people, I think one of the most beautiful things about YouTube and why the internet has been so revolutionary is because we're seeing into each other in a way that we haven't, and we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. And we're saying, like Trisha Paytas, look at me crying on my kitchen floor. Look at me not being happy in my relationship. Look at me feeling bad about certain aspects of myself, like weight, whatever it is, right? Or Amelia Fart saying, I know I shouldn't tell the internet this, but you know I'm going to anyway. And there's something so freeing about that moment where she allows herself to be seen for what she is and not trying to hide it or change it or make it something better than it is, but to accept and to love yourself for what you are in that moment, publicly, to say, this is me. And you can love me or you can hate me, but this is me. And I'm okay with me. And that's so powerful because I think that's something that's lacking in a lot of ways in television, in movies, is that very human moment where we feel connected to another person on a level that is not scripted, on a level that is imperfect. And Emma Chamberlain, I think that's why she's so great, is because she's very aware of how imperfect she is and how normal she is in a way. And she plays with that. And she's like, has her hair in a bun and she's like wearing her pajamas and she's like, oh, editing this vlog. And I think in a time where it's so scary to be imperfect and everything is so photoshopped and edited and scripted, it's beautiful to just see somebody drinking a coffee in their pajamas with their hair up in a bun and no makeup and just being like, what up, guys? Like, love me, even though I'm not perfect, love me. Because there's something beautiful and freeing, not only about seeing that, because it allows you to say, if she can love herself as imperfect, does that mean I can love myself as imperfect? Right? And so it's giving us the freedom to see that we are all imperfect, and that's what ultimately unites us as human beings, is our imperfections and our fragility and our humanness and our insecurities. And being able to laugh at those things together is such a beautiful and powerful thing. And I think that's why people like Amelia Fart and Emma Chamberlain and Trisha Paytas, why these people are so powerful to me. Because they love themselves unapologetically, publicly, and they expose themselves for what they are. And we're peering into their consciousness, and it's peering back at us, and it sees us seeing it, and it's aware that we're aware of what it is. And still they don't try to hide who they are. And isn't that powerful? I think it is. I certainly think it is. And I think it's brave. And I think especially as women, that's very brave to be imperfect. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. But also, I want to talk about, fantasy, too, because that's what movies and all those things do that the internet does not do, is sell you this fantasy and this idealized version of reality, which is also a rejection of reality, but not in the sense that it's rejecting reality saying, oh, I'm supposed to try and be aware of everybody watching me all the time and try to be okay, try to be perfect. But in a way where it's like rejecting reality, okay, because the way they're rejecting reality is saying, I know you want me to be this thing and I'm not going to be it. And you're going to love me anyway, right? But the way that movies and stuff do this is more like, I'm going to take what reality is and I'm going to elevate it to this level that is not necessarily unattainable, but unrealistic, right? Scripted, like cookie cutter reality. And so anyway, I think that's interesting. Also, I just want to say, like, I think art is like a very spiritual thing too, because like you're delving into your own mind and your own subconscious, and you're bringing it out for the people, and it's like a very spiritual experience, I think, to share yourself and to be that vulnerable on a level that I think most people are not comfortable with, and to give a piece of your soul, really. Um, and even at a price sometimes. And I don't think there's anything wrong with selling art, but I'm just saying um, it's hard to put a price on things like that because it's a process that really cannot be measured. Um, See, and maybe I'm making art a fantasy for myself because I want it to be something magical. But I think it really is. I think it really is like a very internal, personal um, process. And I think this idea of like tortured artists is um, not necessarily true, but I think people do have to sacrifice a lot to indulge themselves in this form of expression. Sometimes, not always. But even when they are getting paid, they are sacrificing parts of their vision at times for um, like a contractual agreement with somebody else and what they're seeking from the vision. And that can be fun, but I'm just saying there's sacrifices on many levels for art. So yeah, creativity, imagination, inspiration, expression, uh, the symbolic shared experience, um, your own unconscious, and the projection of the other, like all coming together. Very beautiful. And I think this is another reason why like blank canvases are a thing. And I know people hate this, but I don't. I think blank canvases are actually genius because a blank canvas is your projection and you're allowed to see whatever you want in it. And also, I think a blank, like selling a blank, not necessarily blank, but like a white canvas or whatever, like a red canvas, like something very average or like easy to do, as people would say. I think that's very interesting because you're allowing them to make it what they need in that moment. You're allowing them to see what they want to see. But also, some people are very skilled in the art of being a salesman. So they're like, this is what it means to me. And they create the story behind the art. And so the art really isn't that important because the art isn't really the art. The art is behind the art in the story of the art or why the art is or what the art means to the artist. And that in itself is a creative process of expression. So I don't know. Art's very interesting to me, and I was just having all these thoughts about it, and they're all kind of coming out, maybe a little jumbled, but um, I just thought I'd share a little bit about how I feel about art. Just like that, I think there was a guy who just like sat smiling um, on YouTube, and I think he got like somebody actually broke into his house while he was doing that because he would sit for hours. Um, but anyway, my point is, uh, again, he's allowing you to choose what it means. Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he uncomfortable? Is he angry? Is he being held hostage? Uh, what does it mean? And what do you want it to mean? And that's what's so interesting about it, is because it's up to you to choose what you want it to mean to you. Anyway. I think that's good. I think we're done here. But art's cool. I don't know why I'm getting super into this. I just was bored and had a lot of thoughts, so I thought I'd share some of them. Also, I still have not finished my Coachella and skydiving vlog, which is so frustrating to me. And I will get it done. I just quit my job, which was kind of like physically demanding. So I was working a lot, like way too much. So I quit so that I could rest, and I gave myself a week to rest, and now I'm trying to like get back into some other stuff that I need to actually do. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this kind of stuff because like I thought it was interesting, and hopefully you found it interesting too. And if you didn't, you probably already clicked off this video. So perfect. But if you're a subscriber, I promise I will have. Wait, I don't promise because I don't want to make myself into a liar. But I hopefully will have cool like vlogging trip to California, Coachella, skydiving vlog up. How many times did I just say vlog? Oh, the wonders of being live. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching, and appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. I fuck with y'all heavy. I fuck with y'all heavy. One time this girl in high school told me that my bottom eyelashes were way too long. I don't agree.